Hello, and thank you for joining me in this instructional video on data validation in Excel. In this video, we'll be exploring how you can use data validation to help ensure the accuracy and integrity of your data. So what is data validation? In Excel, data validation is a feature that allows you to specify certain rules or criteria that data entered into a cell must meet. So this includes numerical ranges, specific values, or even data entered in a certain format. So we navigate to data validation. You start at the home, you go to data, and you'll be able to see this drop down here. So there are several types of data validation available in Excel, including a whole number, and let me pull these up. So allow a whole number where you can specify between certain integers as we reviewed in data types. So minimum 1, maximum 2000 in this column. You can do decimal. So decimal, and then you're able to have anything that was categorized as float or double, as we reviewed before. And then you have a list. So a list we'll go into more detail on. It's probably the most common use of data validation in Excel whenever you want people to be selecting a certain range of options. And in between dates, for a time, a certain text length, and then custom is a formula. We're going to ignore that for now. Okay, now that we've covered the types of validation that we can do, let's look at how to use it. So we found out how to navigate to there, but to first apply it, you're going to want to select the range of cells that you want to apply it to. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so I can get all of the entries. And we're going to do a list. A whole number or a decimal, you can just specify a range of values. I only have 10 workers and I have a sheet that shows how many workers are working. It can only be a number between 1 and 10, and that's going to be a whole number, for example. I could show you an example of that, but there's no reason because you'll be able to see all the same things in a list. So let's just go ahead and jump to a list, and we're going to include all of those in the department ID. There's only so many department IDs. I want it to be a drop-down list. So I selected my cells, I navigated to data, then data validation drop down, and went to data validation. And it's for those selected cells. I'm doing a list. And my source, you'll click that button, and I like to have a separate tab for the validation options. So coming over to here, I'm going to select all of my options for department ID, and I'll hit enter. Click OK. I want that cell drop down, and now it's a drop down of options. So I have these 5 new employees, and now the only information that can be entered are 1001 through 4. You can do the same thing with whole numbers, but I personally like to have a list because then you can expand on it later. So expanding on it later, you can click the cell, I insert, and 1005, or if needs to be so specific, you can put 5 at the end. Coming back over here, you'll see now that one of the options is 1005. You have to do it in between the list for it to work properly. Because if I just inserted here and added 1006 at the bottom or at the top, I come back over, and it's not one of the options. So it has to be in between. Keep that in mind whenever you're editing a list. And we're also going to review date. So for date, we're going to take our date of hire, and these are very applicable examples. This is a real employee scheduling system that's in place at a Fortune 500 company. I'm going to select my range of cells, so I want to grab that entire column. Data validation, I am clearing what's there right now. Let me start over. So going into here, selecting date and the start date, I can do the date of incorporation of the company, because there's no way anybody's before that. And then do today, parentheses, and then add 30 days, because I don't want more than a month in the future. Select OK, and there was one data entry that was too far in the future. And if I were to make the correction, it was actually 2023, it was just an improper entry, and it's corrected. But for any further entries, so if I try to do that again, it's going to give me this error. And so when it comes to working with date and time data, you're typically going to be using today as reference whenever it's something that's being continuously updated, and then some time frame of variability that you add. So if you're doing today, then you add 30, it's going to add 30 days. If you were to do right now as a timestamp, then you would do equals now : same thing, and you can add time from there, and it'll add to time to the specified time component. And so that's data validation in a nutshell. It can be a helpful tool for ensuring data accuracy. There are some common issues you may encounter. For example, if you set the validation criteria to be too strict, it may prevent valid data from being entered into a cell, so keep that in mind. On the other hand, if you set it too loose, then you may allow invalid data to be entered. So that concludes our overview of data validation in Excel. And remember that by using data validation, you can help ensure the accuracy and integrity of your data. Thank you so much for watching.